What I was going to say in reaction to what you were saying is, yes, it's the housing and everything, but I think this mass amount of immigration actually does affect almost everything. The prices go up because things are more in demand. The housing prices obviously gigantically up there, and down to day-to-day things like one thing I told Lewis when he got here and that he's already noticed is the U-turns. Like when you're driving, an Indian guy loves a U-turn no matter where he is. He loves just making that U-turn right in front of you. He doesn't care if he's blocking traffic. And it's things like that that has brought every single person pretty much onto the same page. Now, I brought him to a place yesterday of a friend of mine's store, which we won't say the name. But everybody who comes in talks as if in like 2018 they would have been called just like a racist right-winger. Caribbean guys, black guys, what else is there? Asian guys. And they're all just, everyone's just saying the same thing. And so I'm sure from an outsider looking in, people still try to claim that it's a racist argument, but it's really not at all. It's a there's too many people here argument, and it's the people that you've come here for, brought here, come from a country that you don't want to live in. There's no person who's just like, I want to move there. I want to move to Bangladesh or something, work in a t-shirt sewing factory of some kind. Lewis is getting arrested for sure for that one. And like nobody wants to go there. Like if you brought in like 100,000 Swedes and they're all like herga ferga flurga and they're super liberal, I wouldn't like that either. Would they be destroying everything? Probably not. But like if they just drop them off in your town, you just be like, why is there so many like bathhouses or like weird like fish dishes popping up everywhere where they eat the head of an ox or something? So it really is a numbers game. And even Indian guys I know are just like, everybody I speak to now is just like has a problem with Indians, and he's like, I don't think that if I came now that people would befriend me as much because, and he's born here. He's like, if I came here now as an Indian guy, I think I would be treated way worse because they see so many Indian guys just doing stuff that you wouldn't do.
Well, a big factor, and I know your group talks about this in the UK context, social cohesion. Vance brought it up when he was talking about reducing immigration the other day. But when you have such a glut of these people, they're going to strain systems, but they're also not picking up conventions. And our government doesn't give a damn. They got rid of the language requirements, years ago? And they're not trying to assimilate anybody. And, we live in a post-national state. We have no culture to speak of, even though that's the entire point of the CBC. Right? It was a protectionist institution. And so people aren't being brought into anything. They're just coming in and you're having balkanization. So to your point, it could be Swedes, it could be anybody, but people are just basically exporting their country. They're not migrating, they're exporting their country and its cultures and its problems. You saw the battle with the Eritreans and the Ethiopians, right? You're importing civil and international wars and, unsustainable as a numbers game, but also just as a bare reality. And I know it's worse here in, are we allowed to say we're podcasting from in Toronto? It's not so bad in the rural areas, but like I look at UK where the numbers are bad, but they're nowhere near as bad as here.
Per capita,
it spreads, right? This problem, the internecine cultural conflict, it just spreads. Luton was a big example. We brought Tommy Robinson earlier, right? And it's totally taken over. Like it's unrecognizable. That doesn't look like a place in England. Or anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere, although that's fast changing.
And we have our Brampton here,
right,
in the GTA. It's heavily populated with East Indians, and I think they got their second Hanuman or a kind of like large, huge statue, Indian statue, and it doesn't really feel like Canada when you go there.
I find, do you know what I find interesting is all this talk of integration. Because what integration essentially means is you're coming to a country to leave behind what it is that you had come from and to integrate into something. So there is a contradiction when you speak to someone that's on the left or liberal, where people say, well, we want integration, we want this, but then you just see more parallel societies. For example, the news broke very recently that an area within London, Tower Hamlets it's called, which has different demographics to the rural areas of England. It was found that councillors that were stationed there and that actually were voted in this particular district were also running in their elections in Bangladesh at the same time. And you sit there and you think, okay, well, that's clearly not integration. That's clearly not, that shouldn't be right, of course. And I don't know, it's one of those situations where people can't, what am I trying to say? People can just see it now, and you can't just ignore that. There's one thing seeing statistics, and the problem that people have now is if you're behind the curve, and if you're talking about this too early, it can it can really make quite a scene. I'm sure you guys are aware. If you're behind the curve on a particular issue, doesn't matter what it is, you're going to get pillared for it. You're going to be called all, whatever names to try and smear you. But now I think even everyday people are just like, it clearly is a numbers game, and it clearly is changing countries drastically over periods of time that are so small. It's not a gradual thing. It's very overnight, feels.
Yeah. At the very top, I remember Suella Braverman, what was it, a couple of years ago? She mentioned that, I think she just said it verbatim, multiculturalism has failed. She was talking about the issues of integration, or the total failure of that
She was
project.
pillared, like, completely from the media. And
isn't she the daughter of immigrants too?
Yes, yeah.
And so if she can't say that after confronting it as was Home Secretary, I believe.
Yeah.
So she's looking at the real numbers.
Yeah.
So she can't say it. A lot of people are going to get in trouble for saying it, but you hit critical mass at a certain point, which I think it seems like they're almost there.
Yeah.
The United States is, I think, ahead on this issue, obviously. They're being hamstrung at every turn by the courts, but they've acknowledged what they perceive to be a problem, and they're dealing with it. I think what your group's doing, and you suggested there's some interest in Parliament in doing something about it. I don't think, your previous party raised some concerns about it, and your organization now is doing something about it, but I think it's still a minority concern in terms of being voiced in Canada.
Yeah, in terms of the popular conversation,
Yeah.
if you were to watch CBC, you wouldn't even think anyone was really criticizing immigration. And this is kind of, I would probably identify as a central problem in Canada, which is we have media that's largely subsidized by the government. Like, that's not really a characteristic of a free country most of the time. Like, North Korea has that, or Russia has that. But we also have had subsidies to the not just the CBC, but also the private media as well since 2018. They get some of their money from the government as well. But I do think you said, like, being ahead of the curve, you get slammed for it. And absolutely. In 2019, that was my inception into politics. I ran for the PPC. We wanted to, like, cut immigration in half, and we were Hitler for it. I was protested by the Communist Party protested me at debates.
What city was that in?
I was in Toronto. That was Parkdale High Park. I remember going to a door one time, knocking, and they're like, "Oh, a young man running for politics. That's great. Who are you with?" I'm like, "Oh, with the PPC." They're like, "Oh my God, that's disgusting. What?" And I'm like, "Wow." I'm like, "What's the problem?" It's like, "Oh, well, you're racist." And then I turn over to my volunteer, who's Cuban, like, clearly a visual minority, and I kind of just look back to her, and I'm thinking, like, what do I even say? How do I even? And that's when I realized how bad the propaganda was. But like, even back then, just saying to reduce it, it was, you are Hitler. But I wanted to, you were talking about how people are noticing it. Young people especially are seeing the writing on the wall, and they're thinking, well, what is this country going to look like? I'm like, I'm becoming a minority in my own classroom, and they recognize how there's, like, not really a big, strong resistance to this. And at Dominion Society, the organization that I've recently joined, we are promoting nationalism and remigration. And there's a lot of young men signing up because they're like, what else?
What other option is there?
What other option is there? You're actually talking about this. This is kind of like an existential issue. And, like you said, the failure of multiculturalism. It's like, what are we going to have left if we keep kind of adding to this, like, stirred pot of more and more different foreign groups competing? And it turns out that there's going to be a sort of more dominant culture that's going to try to, take the reins.